Welcome back to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to ask, is GTA 6 ruined now that Rockstar Games has gone woke? They've gone woke, Lawrence.
Oh no, God, our games! We have to protect the games. They're all disappearing, all of our humor, because it's impossible to conceive of anything that can be funny and also not make fun of somebody. That's apparently the case in some of the more misogynist, homophobic, and transphobic corners of this internet of ours. They seem to be convinced that GTA 6 is already ruined. After a recent report from Bloomberg that revealed that one of Grand Theft Auto 6's protagonists will be Latina. This somehow is a series first for the 25-year-old franchise, which has only had cis male protagonists across its 15 games and expansions.
Hey guys, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be all right.
Well, it's called Grand Theft Auto, and women don't know how to drive.
Wait, what, Charlotte? The hits don't stop coming either, as the article also describes how Rockstar Games has worked to renovate its corporate culture. Hey, good for them. Author Jason Schreier cites over 20 current and former anonymous Rockstar employees in reporting that the company has narrowed its gender pay gap, hired more producers to better manage crunch conditions, and reeled in frat bro culture that involves strip club visits and office brawls. Good for them.
Just imagining like two systems engineers that have had 4 light beers and they're just slapping at each other across cubicles.
Well, yeah, well, you know, who doesn't participate in an office brawl every now and then?
So does this mean Grand Theft Auto 6 won't contain the franchise's crass humor and satire of American culture? Especially since Schreier reports the company will avoid punching down by joking about marginalized groups.
Well, the answer there, Lawrence, is... No.
Oh.
Going woke's not going to ruin GTA because I don't know if you guys know this. GTA already went woke and it made the game way better. We'll go over the topic here in full in a second, but first, let's cover the news.
The article contains a few details about GTA 6 itself as a game, even though it is mostly focused on the culture renovation at Rockstar Games. For a complete rundown of this new info, we're going to hear from our resident Grand Theft Autologist, Charlotte Avery. Charlotte, when are we going to get to play this damn game?
Not during the Biden presidency. And speaking of not woke, this guy's asleep at the wheel.
You could interpret that a few different ways, couldn't you, about Biden?
Yeah, you could, and they'd all be right. Bloomberg reports that Grand Theft Auto 6 has been in development since 2014, and despite 8 years of development, the game is still at least 2 years away. Schreier offers a few reasons for the slow progress. The pandemic, because duh, but also Rockstar Games is restructuring to minimize crunch conditions.
So GTA 6 will have been in development for an entire decade before it launches? I mean, it's got to be massive, right, Charlotte?
That's not right, Bruce.
What?
That was the case at one point. Apparently, GTA 6 was going to be the largest Grand Theft Auto ever, taking place in large zones modeled after North and South America. Since then, the scope has narrowed significantly to Miami and its surrounding areas. Historically, the GTA equivalent for Miami would be Vice City, but technically that may not be what it's called in GTA 6. GTA games have 3 separate canons within the series, largely referring to the console generations on which they were released. Games in the HD universe have a handful of references to Vice City, but since GTA 6 will be on a new platform, it's possible that it will kickstart a new canon.
Yeah, the 4K universe, that'd be interesting, but you have to admit, it seems a little unlikely though that they're gonna like restart canon and just create a new fake Miami. I mean, why base a game in fictional Miami, not call it Vice City just for the brand recognition alone? Hell, I mean, they could start a new canon, a 4K canon, and still call it Vice City, which is kind of what they did in the HD universe. They had Liberty City in there, but it's technically not the same Liberty City from the PS2 games. But then they do start to cross over because they reference Vice City in a bunch of HD universe games. Whatever.
Yeah, fuck it. GTA 6 will have Vice City. It'll be in Vice City. There, you happy? Okay. You can quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. To compensate for the game's reduction in scope, Bloomberg reports that Rockstar hopes to update the game frequently post-launch with new missions and cities on a regular basis. Yeah, okay. GTA 6 will also feature more interior locations than previous Grand Theft Auto games, so at least it's got that feather in its pimp hat.
The idea of a GTA frequently updated with single-player content sounds great, but also sounds like complete bullshit, and we all know it.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing we've seen from Rockstar Games lately tells us they would actually keep updating a Grand Theft Auto post-launch. GTA 5 never got any story DLC, really, unless you count some of the online updates, which kind of have that woven in there. And those online updates are practically gated behind monetary purchases. You can grind out enough money to buy your way into them, but come on. They also recently announced they'd be reeling in content updates to Red Dead Online to work on GTA 6. And that game sold a ton. It sold 44 million units. So if they can't stick around for that, it just seems unlikely.
Yeah, nothing about those moves implies they'll happily make free downloadable single-player content for GTA 6. I mean, I guess it may be pay, but that would still be weird. The only way this checks out is if GTA 6 and whatever monetized online experience it offers are actually the same. That way, content updates keep players coming back to the game where they could potentially spend money. That sounds about right. It doesn't necessarily paint a pretty picture for GTA 6's single-player story experience either.
The final game detail is that the series' first playable woman will be half the playable cast, a Bonnie and Clyde inspired pair of bank robbers. The article doesn't specify that the other playable character is male though, which already has us hoping that GTA 6 will be a story about badass bank robbing lesbians. Please, I need to be represented in media as a bank robber.
But GTA's woke now. What's the point of playing a game about lesbians if you can't hear a never-ending parade of low-hanging one-dimensional jokes about carpet munching? GTA's humor has always been pretty crass and crude, seemingly mocking all groups equally, one of those kind of South Park sort of things where you just get to be like, hey, we do it to everybody, so it's fine. So what would a GTA look like if it's walking on eggshells about cultural issues?
Kind of probably look like Grand Theft Auto 5, as we alluded to earlier, which despite coming out in 2013, was actually very progressive in its depiction of homosexuality and bisexuality. One of the game's three protagonists, Trevor, is bisexual, and it's not presented as being deviant or weird, just plain normal. Now there's plenty else about Trevor that's all those things, but that aspect, at least, was handled well.
Sort of. Yeah, he is kind of depicted as a craven weirdo, and anything associated with him feels like it's depicted in like a get a load of this guy kind of way, but it's definitely not the worst. An earlier side quest in GTA 5 also has Franklin confronting a paparazzo who's trying to take photos of actors walking into a gay bar to ruin their career. Franklin reacts to this with bafflement, wondering why anyone would care about an actor's sexuality.
Man, who gives a fuck if he's gay or not, man?
Along that note, there's also a scene where Michael's son is trying to express his emotions, and despite being emotionally immature in basically every other regard, they acknowledge that using gay as a pejorative isn't cool.
I want to say I love you and hug it out, but all that wimpy shit is just, well, I'd say gay, but I have some friends who are gay, so that's not cool anymore. And the ones that I don't really like, it's not because they're gay.
And again, at the same time, like Charlotte was talking about, the game flopped hard in its depiction of transsexuality, dipping back into eye-rolling references, one-dimensional stereotypes that are they're lazy at best. GTA has always kind of been this way, and they're harmful at very worst. Trans women are in the game, sort of, but the drag queens, in quotes, that spawn outside of a few Los Santos nightclubs are trans women stereotypes with tacky makeup, crotch bulges, the whole deal. Vocal lines with these NPCs are just way worse.
You define everything that's wrong with this place.
With Michael calling them a whatever, and Franklin telling them they need to keep taking their hormones.
That shit sucks because those characters are usually the voice of reason, especially Franklin. He's usually the one that's there sort of commenting on why everything's so stupid and why people are like prejudiced and stuff. And for him to say that really, really sucks, and I think puts a nail in it.
I was going to say, I've nenever looked up to any of these GTA protagonists. They've always seemed like shitty people to me. So when they say shitty things, I've always expected it.
You'll find transphobic comments far later into popular media, especially in a comedic tone, than you will anything about, cis gay people or like any of that stuff. It was like fine for the longest time, and it still stings. I didn't remember that from the game. Carolyn Pettit addressed the topic in a September 2021 article for Kotaku, arguing that GTA 5 would be a better game with these elements removed or amended for the enhanced and expanded edition that Rockstar released in June 2022. In the article, Pettit points out that times have changed since 2013 for the trans community, and not for the better. Legislation to deprive trans individuals of healthcare or fundamental rights have been introduced in 33 US states. That, combined with streams and YouTube videos of people intentionally brutalizing these trans NPCs, turns what was a lazy joke into an utterly tasteless and potential harmful one. Fun fact, maybe spoiler for you, that's usually how it happens. That's why it's never just a joke. It normalizes othering. So keep that in mind if you ever want to cry, it's just a joke, because it's not. Pettit suggests that in the modern era, setting up trans women like stereotypical punching bags is so profoundly out of touch that it's, quote, exactly the sort of thing that a developer that prides itself on being culturally hip and relevant should want to avoid. She also offers a few solutions. remove the content entirely, or add a disclaimer in the same way TCM did regarding the romanticization of slavery in Gone with the Wind. Not the same thing. Not drawing a one-to-one comparison.
No, just sort of comparing the way to handle things that are, removed from context while still preserving the way it was presented when it originally released, yeah. Luckily, it seems Rockstar was listening, as the enhanced and expanded version of GTA 5 does actually remove those NPCs from spawning in the game. You can still access them in director mode, but their dialogue options have been removed, even in director mode. There were some other minor adjustments as well, such as removing the Captain Space Toy Interstellar Transgender that had interchangeable genitalia. So GTA is known for those stupid, like, playground level, one-shot stereotypical insults, but like, the game isn't just that anymore. It actually developed a bit of a soul along the way, so I think it's like caught between these two things, but honestly, the sooner it shaves off that dumb playground bullshit, the better it is, and the more grown-up it will be, and it will actually be a legitimate work, instead of just being just a pile of stupid. GTA 3 is embarrassing, is what I'm saying. 5 is pretty good.
These examples show how humor with marginalized groups can be done right and be done wrong. When it comes to homosexuality and bisexuality, Rockstar managed to create interesting, funny, satirical content the series is known for. And with transsexuality, Rockstar clearly recognized that their efforts in 2013 were not up to spec. They removed them, as well they should have.
So talking about these examples and the various representations, the point is that GTA can still have that base humor and cutting satire without resorting to easy stereotypes. If anything, going woke just means that we can expect more out of the humor in the game than the same tired jokes we've already heard a million times. Do you really want to play GTA 6 and hear a fucking attack helicopter joke? That's the kind of thing it used to be. We can expect more, and we deserve better.
But really, Lawrence, how do you even satirize American culture now that it's a living parody of itself? What do you do there?
You just have to go like Saints Row insane to achieve any kind of parody of modern America. There's still things to satirize. You could just satirize going woke, you know? Take that to its extreme. Have a version of GTA inside GTA that's now sterile and devoid of any humor or interesting context. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the trailer for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. There's still things to find to poke fun at and satirize in the modern landscape. It's just not what it used to be. You can't really satirize large politics anymore because that's just a living joke, but you can satirize cultural movements.
Yeah, man, some of this shit is such a bummer. It just sucks, and it just sucks to see people cling on to a past that is so uninclusive, because, you know, as a marginalized person who plays games, like, it sometimes it's just, you put so much time into something and then, like, boom, out of nowhere you get hit with something and you're like, oh, okay, that shouldn't have opened that. As far as the matter of satire goes, I think it's worth looking at what kind of tool Rockstar is even wielding, because, like, Grand Theft Auto as satire is almost sometimes like a blunt object, taking like big swings at culture as a whole, and I think the reason that we can't maybe are having trouble thinking or conceptualizing satire with that kind of tool in this kind of moment is that the big over-the-top stuff is happening all the time, and maybe it leaves me personally wanting for like a more precise and like cutting sort of commentary and satire that's maybe a little drier and a little subtle, but that's not something I would want from a game like GTA. And so, like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but for something with the scope of a Grand Theft Auto game and the open world nature and the, like, taking a big picture look at culture, it is kind of, I'm curious what I would even want it to say about American culture as it stands. It's just, I don't know if it just may not be the tool for this moment.
Exactly, well said, Charlotte. I can only echo your sentiments there. I kind of have nothing more to say on the matter because you guys covered it all and did it really well. So, excellent job. Hey, here are some patrons who always tell the most tasteful jokes. We don't know that for sure about them, by the way. Jared Ermac, Tito 007, Spirit Bear, Regulus, Everyday Brian, and Elite 4 Josh. Thanks for being our patrons. Make sure you tell actual tasteful jokes.
I've got a few patrons that always live life at a 5-star wanted rating. On the edge. Orala, Lenny Neves, Maurice Thompson, Docs360, UESC Battleroid, and J Embers 87. Thank you for living extreme.